This is Beyond the Bell Tower, where an elite group of North Carolina State University students give us a behind-the-scenes look at their steps to success and show us how they attain even their lofty goals. These students, who are in the top 10% of the country, are active in Student Support Services at NC State, a nationally recognized program designed to provide support for low-income, first-generation college students. Nationally, this population has an 11% graduation rate within 6 years. The Student Support Services students surpass that rate each year and go on to become doctors, dentists, accountants, and engineers. They work at Google, Apple, and the NCAA. They have earned PhDs in Ivy League colleges. These students go well beyond the bell tower to reach this level of success.
Beyond the Bell Tower with Shaquilla Hamlett, one of the most famous trio alums. And I'm excited to talk about because you're famous in a bunch of other ways, multiple ways. One of them, I was Google searching you, knowing there was going to be tons of stuff about you that you never told me, which I did find out some things. One of those, did you actually win the lottery?
I did, yeah.
Yes,
that is how I paid for my last car. I won the lottery and I paid for the car and moved to Florida.
So we are here with Shaquilla Hamlett, lottery winner. I'm sure she's going to tell us all how to win the lottery. And
I wish. You got to dream a number, apparently.
Now, did you pick that number yourself or did you do the random?
I went to sleep one night and the same number played over and over and over in my head all night. Woke up, I told my parents and they was like, you got to play that. So we played it. They won and I won.
Oh my gosh. Now, had you ever thought about those numbers before? Like, was that a dream that you would have?
I was just like, what does these numbers mean? Like, why is this playing in my head? That's why I asked my parents. I'm like, I don't understand why these numbers keep showing up.
Oh, weird. Now, what we will find out, too, as we start talking is that things work out for you. Most recently happened, you just graduated with your master's in marine science.
Yeah, just a couple weeks ago.
Mm-hmm. And so there's a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. One, we got the lottery covered. Two is my octopus teacher.
Oh, yes.
And people will see the connection there. And then three, all that you have contributed to TRIO that students are not aware of. Like you created the peer mentor program. Did you create the TRIO ambassador program?
I helped set it up, yes.
Set it up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
and then I helped lead it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the peer mentor program is one of the most important programs that's happened since, and students talk all about it and all of that stuff. So we'll talk about that. And then everything that you did with the exotic animal hospital at the vet school from you, which you and I've talked about, is that once you were connected with the vet school and Dr. Lubar, there now is all this partnership where TRIO students are being connected to the vet school in different programs and all of this stuff. And you're a writer.
Yeah.
So. And a photographer. So we'll get all into that though. But first, let's talk about the most recent biggest news is with your graduate degree and your octopuses?
Scientists are going back and forth. Right now it's octopuses.
Okay.
Yes, my 12 little octopuses.
Okay, yeah. So what did you do with those? Tell us all about it.
My project overall wanted to study memory and learning in octopuses. I already thought it was super cool that these guys live very, very short lives, years, but they're super smart. I wanted to do some more studies and see is there a difference between octopus and squid and whatnot. So what I did was take 12 They're called BMAC octopus, so the California two-spot octopus. I had them since they were a week old. And so I raised them to about 4 months old. And then we started experiments where I had designed these habitats out of 3D rocks, and they had to navigate them to find a hidden food source. And then they had to remember it. So they would do this intense training for 8 weeks. And then they would take a week break and see, hey, do you still remember these habitats? And then they would take a 4-week break and try again. And that was like short and long-term memory. Come to baby octopus are very difficult to keep alive. Fun fact, I had never a saltwater tank before this, and octopus are considered advanced level. So of course, jumped all the way to highest. So we did lose them before the completion of the experiments, but we ended up dissecting their brains, and we were able to look at the development of the different lobes of the brain and show that, hey, these guys have, for example, they have the vertical lobe and optic lobe, and this shows they can learn and have memory like us. So that was super cool. Not a lot of people had done that, so it was.
Yeah, excellent. So my knowledge of octopi, we'll use both. We don't get hate mail here, both sides of the coin here. So with the octopus teacher, it was like the common octopus. So is that different from the octopuses that you study?
Yeah. The common octopus is bigger than mine. When I worked with my octopus, they were about the size of a pencil eraser. They were really tiny. And they were in this giant 30-gallon tank. So they were fun trying to find. But the common octopus, lives on this side of the country, and the California octopus is all the way on the other side. So I actually got mine from Massachusetts, where they raised them in a lab.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, and the other interesting thing I saw was because I couldn't handle watching the entire documentary because I'm just. Did you watch it?
I did, and I cried at the end like I knew I would.
Yeah. So what did you think about it?
I loved it. It's now since I've done this project, I feel like I appreciate it even more because, like, you watch Octopus Teacher, you see this octopus has all these personalities and like it does all these amazing things. And my octopus, they're youngest, like a few weeks old, and each single one of them had their own personalities, their own habits. It was great comparing my experience to that documentary.
Because one of the things I saw in there was they were talking about a law, which then when I looked up your stuff, I think it changed. So from the movie, it said, or there was some interview with octopus researchers, and they had said that as of 2020, octopuses weren't included in the Animal Welfare Act for their treatment during research.
Was or was not?
Was not. Before, but it's changed, right?
It has, because I had to get a special permit in order to get them. Even though it's not yet meant for invertebrates, it's only meant for you're going to work with monkeys and rats. And so it was weird trying to fill it out. But yeah, they are under there now. And they're the only inverts that's under there.
Yeah. Is that because they didn't think they had a brain or?
Yeah, they didn't think they were so smart. And there's this invertebrates aren't as intelligent as we think vertebrates are, but we're coming to find out they actually can do a lot of things we do. As simple as bees and roaches can have learning behaviors and whatnot. And so when they started looking at the octopus closer, they had to realize, oh, actually, these are pretty intelligent creatures. We can't just treat them any type of way.
Right. Yeah. Because when I saw that, I was almost thinking about how some people with pescatarians, or even the way we pollute oceans, it just seems like, fish don't have feeling, or something like that.
Yes, I do know. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Because what do you think that is? What's the common held belief about octopuses, and because I know you also are very involved in conservation and water quality and all of that stuff.
Yeah, they really is a big thing. It's like, oh, they don't feel it. When I was doing my research, I read a whole bunch of papers where they would just cut out the nervous system, or they would like snip out the arms or take out the eyes just to see what would happen. But they didn't think that they felt it. And then they started realizing, oh, actually, we need to give them anesthesia. This causes pain.
Right.
So that was definitely, there was a lot of that way, especially in the 90s. So recently we're getting into the welfare stuff.
Right. And then back to your like specific research with that, like, what do you think the implications will be or are like current? But then I was just thinking, even as you're talking, it's like, even if you probably are one of the first graduate students in the country probably to do octopus research, especially now that there are guidelines.
Oh, yeah. Definitely one of the, I think so far, I am at least one of two people in the whole state of Florida who's done octopus research. And as far as I know, no one's done it the way I have. So my methods are really new. Like no one's used 3D printed rocks ever before. And I'm pretty sure this is filling out the CARE permit. It's super new. I think it started literally right before I bought my octopus.
Right.
Oh yeah.
These new guidelines.
Yeah. It was it's one of those things where for me, even if I didn't have the permit, I would have still done the same thing I did now. It just made it more official. So it was like, oh, you had to have special documentation on your tanks that says we're allowed to have these kind of things. But the same thing, like making sure they have enrichment so that they have things they can interact with and feel stimulated, making sure they're fed, make sure the water quality is good. These are all things I would have done anyway, just simply because I care so much about conservation and things. But definitely permit in place, it's like putting that requirement on everyone, and I appreciate it for that.
Yeah, because now with aquariums and stuff, did they have less rules as to like how to best treat like octopus and similar animals than like say the elephants? Or
I wouldn't say less, I would just say different.
Okay.
It's more of like, oh, we care more about the vertebrates, but at the same time things work just as hard to care for their animals.
Yeah. So what has been the response to your research?
Considering so many people came, I would be walking through school and some random person was like, hey, aren't you the octopus girl? And I'm like, I don't know who you are, but yeah, that's me. And my cubicle was the only one with had these octopus skeletons on it, so everyone knew where I was. So it kind of made me famous around school, so that was kind of cool. I actually got to talk to some of the behaviorists at Zoo Miami to help me when I was doing the enrichment stuff. So it's definitely opened doors for me to connect. I got to connect with someone all the way in England to talk about cuttlefish and octopus research with sleep. So looking at sleep. So it's been cool for connects. Right.
No, that's so good. Yeah, because remember when I wrote you the recommendation for the funding of it, I remember you saying like you were the only one in your department to use live specimens.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
We have coral and we have fish, and that's about it.
Yeah. Well, and they did have the octopus girl, but the octopus girl now is gone. She graduated. Right?
Yes.
So how did people find out about you on campus? Did they come to your presentations or they saw your labs?
I think it was word of mouth, because like I worked in a lab where there was not a lot of people in there because I needed so much space for my tanks. But I think it was just one of those things, like I taught biology too to the undergrads, and they come to our campus for some of their marine science classes, and I would see them and they'd be telling their friends about my project. And then the graduate students would tell each other, hey, did you know we have octopus in the building? So it kind of just spread like wildfire throughout the school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then I saw that you didn't get funding through the NIH that I did, but I saw that you got funding through a couple of other sources.
Yeah.
And that you actually raised more money than you had set out to.
Yes, I did. Yeah. I got through the college So they study like the mollusks. So like that includes cephalopods, the octopus and squid and whatnot. And then I also went a different route. I went through crowdfunding on experiment.com, and they happened the time I was applying, they had this new grant called Hot Science Summer through Vanguard STEM, and it's for minorities and women in STEM. And they funded the majority of the project.
Yeah. So say that again, that it was on experiment.com.
Yeah, it was experiment.com, and the grant called Hot Science Summer through Vanguard STEM for minorities and women in STEM. They were the ones who funded the majority of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Because then I saw all the names on it. And so was that like individual people, like they saw your research and they decided like, I'm going to put my own personal money toward your research.
Yep. So it was advertised all over the world. And then if they found my project interesting enough, they could donate to it. And then Vanguard matched basically whatever money that I didn't raise, they gave me the rest of it.
Yeah, excellent. And did you develop any relationships with those people that gave money to you?
No, not directly. The ones who were part of the program, yes, we talked a little bit. We actually had to do a kind of a conference at the end of our projects to present it. So I did get that way, talk to them, and they helped me with set up my presentation and whatnot. But the rest of the people, it was more of like, hey, I kept them updated with different lab notes of what was going on so that they always knew how the project was going. But I didn't directly like connect with all of them.
Yeah, because was this an expensive project? I mean, you're talking about tanks and 3D printed rocks.
Oh my gosh. I think my budget for the overall project was originally about $7,000. Mm-hmm. I got that amount roughly. And then there's you have to keep feeding these octopus for the next few months. There's these other costs you didn't look out for. So I ended up paying a lot of it with my loan money as well. But hey, I still had octopus. So
yeah, I think like there's a couple of things that I always talk to you about. I mean, I've been trying to get you on the podcast for 8 years.
4 years, forever.
Yeah. So, because certain things that you do so well, like exceptional, and I always use an example to students. And so it was like, well, I need to have it, in your words and not just this, well, Shaquilla did, which I'm sure they're just like, you're lying, whatever. But that's the piece that nothing has ever stopped you, where it's like somebody may say, oh, well, if you do a project with live octopuses, you like, it's going to be so expensive. So if you do the coral, then, you'll be able to afford it and you'll get your degree just as you would,
Yeah. And I actually was offered that. My advisor had a project with looking at symbiosis with coral. And he was like, if you do this project, it's fully funded, you can get done. And I would have graduated more than a year ago. Some of my classmates took that, but I wanted to do something no one else had done at school. I didn't want to do the same old. So he was like, well, if you want to do it, you got to figure out how to pay for it. And I was like, let's do it then.
Yeah. No, good for you. I mean, because that's the thing, again, that I said, which we'll get back to, is like starting the peer mentoring program. Nobody had thought to do it or, do it. There's just so many other things that, I think you were the first undergrad to work with the turtle rescue program. I
wasn't the first undergrad, but I was one of the most common features there. Everyone started assuming I was already.
Yeah. So, I mean, how would you describe your relationship with animals? I can describe it in a way, but I'll first let you describe.
I know how you feel about my animals. All the times I've scared you. I don't know. I think people
when you brought in like monsters,
they were cute little reptiles that don't even.
That were not on leashes.
They were fine. Well, my bearded dragon was on a leash and it had wings.
That was the one you brought into the office where I freaked out, right?
Yes, that was the one where I've never seen you I'm so high in my entire life. It's worth it. So worth it.
But you didn't even ask me. You just came in and I was like, what's that on your chest?
That was the idea.
Oh my God.
I wanted to surprise you. Surprise.
Yeah. Okay. Well, so tell us about your zoo.
Oh my gosh. What do I have now?
Mm-hmm.
I still have the doggy-o tigress. I still have a dragon rascal. Now I have a kitty cat named Tigger. He's a cute little orange tabby. Love him to death. He's best friends with my dog. I now have 2 crested geckos, Hazel and I have a ball python named Phoenix.
You have a python?
I do. I have a ball python. So she'll get about 5 feet long and then she'll stop. So she won't get taller than me, and that's what's important.
But what if she gets out and eats your kitten?
Well, considering I keep her well fed, I don't think that's a problem. And my kitty cat is like, what's that? And we'll probably just smack him in the head. So it's fine.
Oh my gosh.
I keep bricks on it, so she can't get out.
Oh my gosh. How did you get a python? Well, tell me about it, because I'm sure all I know is what's in the movies, and I'm sure it's not true that they kill people.
Not those pythons. So these ones are considered one of the first or inner snake. Don't get any bigger than 4 or 5 feet long. So they're really small. Their heads are tiny. So there's definitely no way they could eat us, which is important. Do not need to wake up to a snake trying to eat me.
Yeah.
She's called a pastel, so she's kind of yellowish brown. So Florida is, of course, the prime spot to find reptiles. So I went to a reptile shop down here, and I got her when she was just 1. Got her right before the pandemic, and I've had her ever since.
Oh my gosh.
She likes cuddles.
Oh, don't. I'm having a panic attack, actually. Go ahead.
Even my kids who were nervous with snakes, they let her, so because she likes to lay on your shoulder and fall asleep or curl up in your chest. All my kids like to cuddle. Even my crested geckos. All of my kids like cuddle.
Oh my gosh. Well, how are you going to, you're going to have to then live in Florida, right? I mean,
absolutely not.
How are you going to, you can't get an apartment in Raleigh with that many animals and a python.
Sure you can. Raleigh only ask about the furred ones. They don't ask about the reptiles. North Carolina is very lenient on their exotics.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So as long as I don't try to get a tiger, I think I'm good.
Okay. Yeah. And then if you go to NC State Vet School, don't you get to take your exotic animals to the exotic hospital for free? For checkups and stuff?
I don't know. That would be useful.
Yeah. It would be cheaper. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh, just taking the snake was $100.
Oh my God. Okay. I'm glad you love animals. Okay, so where does this relationship come from?
With animals?
Yeah.
Oh, well, as you know, from North Carolina, for those who don't know, and I grew up in the country, so I've never lived in a house where I wasn't surrounded by woods. So there was always some kind of wildlife going through our yard, whether it was not wolves, but coyotes or foxes. I've almost been hit in the head by an owl flying by. There was so many different wildlife. And I was always like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, let me go figure out what that is. So I was just always looking for all the weird things. And luckily for me, my parents they're animal lovers who are like, I'm going to stand over here and you do you. They're from a distance, but they still encouraged me. So they bought me a little terrarium. The rule was I could catch any animal and keep it in the terrarium for the day, as long as I returned it and didn't bring it inside the house. So I guess that's where it started. I mean, I ate around wildlife, so I love the wildlife.
Yeah, because even you wrote a book about animals, right?
I did.
When you were in high school, or
I did. I published a book for my English graduation project. I published a book in the voices of animals that lived in the zoo.
Yeah. Now, what do you want to do next in your career?
Oh gosh. So it's kind of a mixture of things. Like right now, I'm applying to veterinary school. I want to get certified as an animal behaviorist, specifically for exotics and whatnot, because I want to continue to work both in research and whatnot, trying to find better ways to rehab animals and better conservation efforts. So trying to get some populations up in our wildlife. But I also love environmental education. I love getting people excited about science and about animals. Love showing up at people's offices, scaring them with my animals. So love to continue that in the future.
Yeah, I think so.
If only everyone could see your face right now.
No, you all don't understand. She's not joking. Talking to the audience right now.
Oh, gosh.
She's not okay.
I think it's great. I love walking up to people and I'm just talking to them about an animal, and then they happen to look down at my shoulder and it's like, that's an animal. How long have you had that there? And I'm like, oh, it's been here the whole.
With the octopus teacher, they're not on the endangered species list. Are they?
I don't think
are they now?
I think it varies on the species. I don't know if they're specifically on there.
Yeah, because I knew that was like one of the articles that I had looked at about octopuses, octopi, and that movie. And that was one of the things the guy in the movie was hoping would come out of it, is that they would be like, there would be more stuff done for the betterment of octopuses. So
I think if anything, it brought awareness. So now people are more interested in like, why did you do that?
So, well, at the end, we'll talk about the ending of that movie, why you cried. I don't want to do a spoiler now. Okay. So when we first met was in 2013 when you started at NC State. So what made you decide to come to NC State?
Oh, NC State has been my dream school since I was 9. And it was simply because, one, I was homeschooled. And when I researched schools, that was the only veterinarian school in the entire state. So, and I knew, I was like, I want to be a vet. So of course, I need to go to NC State, right? So it was my dream school from then, but it really solidified in high school when I visited and I stepped on the campus and I was like, oh my gosh, I'm home. And I was like, this has got to be the place I have to go. And I did.
And then how did you join Trio? How did you find out about us? I can't remember.
How did I find out about you guys? I think it might have been at one of those fairs they had with all the clubs and whatnot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then I just so happened to find your office was in an area where my classes were. Mm-hmm. And I walked in and I feel like I just started talking. The next thing I know, I was there for the rest of the 5 years. Yeah,
exactly. No, you were our number one recruiter. You brought in new students all the time. I graduated with animal science. Mm-hmm. And what are your favorite memories about NC State?
Definitely, of course, hanging out with a lot of my friends were from Trio. So I remember, oh my gosh, one of the ones that popped in my head, I don't know if you remember Jessica, how we became friends was you guys started having lunch for us or like bringing in Pandora or whatnot. Yep. And she sat down beside me and just started eating off my plate. And for those who don't know me, I don't like people touching my food. So according to her, I gave her a deaf glare and she feared for her life for a second. And then after that, we became But yeah, so I love meeting all the different people in Trio. It always felt like I had another family. And during that time, since I couldn't be around mine, it was great to have another family there. Office, of course. Yeah.
No, when the pandemic
the pandemic, you said?
Oh, well, I was going to say when the pandemic happened, I think we all in the office said, oh my gosh, what would Shaquille have done if you were here, because you were always in the office?
I would have snuck in knowing me. I'm like, hey, where are you going? Getting some fresh air. Sneaks into Trio office. I love the fact that I think I just saw it actually on a post too, how NC State's team spirit, like even when we're losing, we're not this team that leave. So like is even in my high school, if your team's losing, everyone leaves the stands. Mm-hmm. We don't. We just cheer harder. And I love our team spirit and our energy. I miss that. It make games so much fun. And then it's one of the few places where you can bring your pets to school. So going to zoology club and like being in their pets with everyone. I have a lot of memories. Like over 5 years, there's a lot. There's a lot of good memories there.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah. No, definitely. Yeah, do you want to talk about your time with the exotic hospital? Because I was thinking about even like of the most important people in your life, critical people, not important, but because there's critical people and like critical relationships they talk about. And I just think of Dr. Lubart, but I don't want to.
Yes. Dr. Lubart has been an amazing mentor, still keep in contact. Yeah. So I met Dr. Lubart my sophomore year. Class he came to present about the rescue team and as being a veterinarian. And I was one of the people who walked up after him and started asking questions. And from then there, that's just started our relationship. Went all the way uphill from there. I joined shortly after that class, and because I was there all the time and learning how to care for these turtles, then I started asking questions. I was like, hey, has anyone ever figured out what happens when the turtles are released? Like, how well do they do? And he was like, we always wondered, but no one's ever figured that out. And that started my first research project where we put trackers on 5 different turtles. We tracked them for a year. And even though we lost a couple of them and someone actually stole my turtle, looking inside the house with tracker and all.
Oh my gosh, did you show up to their house?
I literally tracked them to someone's house and I was like, this is awkward.
Yeah.
Never saw that turtle again. But so even though I didn't get to like publish any results or whatnot, from there we started putting trackers on all kinds of turtles. We learned that turtles could live with injuries we thought they couldn't. Like we let go of one snapper turtle called oh my gosh, what was his name? We had him for the longest time. I can't remember his name right now, but he had half a jaw. So we thought he could barely eat. And he got released and did amazingly, still able to do a great time. So that opened up a whole bunch of different projects.
You talked about the turtle that survived with just half a jaw.
Yeah, that's basically what I said. It was like after we learned that since, he could survive with half a jaw, that maybe there's other injuries that turtles can survive with. Like we now know that they can survive with 2 legs as long as they're on basically like in a diagonal. One front, one backwards. So now we do a lot of different. It basically opened up the doors to do different research and track and research with different turtles.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, because would you have a responsibility, like not to let a turtle out into the wild with just 2 legs if
normally they would go into rehab. Normally they would just find a forever home after they've been considered healthy. So like sometimes we wouldn't release turtles that had 1 eye. We normally would not have released a turtle with half a jaw because it was like, I don't know if they can survive out there. And like, of course, what's the point of like helping a turtle heal just to send it off into an environment it can't handle? So me asking that question allowed us to answer those questions and see, hey, is it possible? And we've learned, turtles are very resilient. They will take they'll take what they're given and they will go for it. So.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just another huge example, Shaquilla, why you're my hero. I hope one day I'm like you, is that not knowing is more powerful sometimes than knowing. So it's like where it was just like, oh, well, we know, that obviously if a turtle just has 2 legs, like they're not going to be able to survive. So we just made that decision, but it takes somebody not know it, to say, well, no, what does happen?
Yeah.
That makes this huge impact on, and with NC State, well, especially Dr. Lubart, he's one of the top exotic animal veterinarians in the country or world.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. So it's like, even for him, it's just, I mean, that's the power of being an undergrad and of not knowing.
Yes, you ask those questions and then go for it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm known for anything. I'm known for asking questions.
Well, how do you do it? Like, how do you not get like nervous or intimidated? Or like, a lot of times people are like, well, I'm afraid they'll think I'm stupid, or that I'm, causing problems, or I'm interrupting.
I think it's one of those things where if it's something I truly care about, I'm like really passionate, I really want to know something, none of those thoughts pass through my head. So it's different from when I'm in class. I'm like, I don't really know the answer to this question. I don't want my teacher to judge me. But when it's like something, I'm like, I really truly want to know this. Like, how come we don't know the answer to this question? And if it's like that strong on my mind, I don't even have the room to wonder if it's a stupid question or if I'm going to be laughed at. I just want to know the answer.
Right. Yeah. And we've proven that your brain's very powerful with winning the lottery and with turtles. Yeah. And so the other thing too, what I thought was so cool, I remember when you first got into grad school and you got your GA where you were teaching undergrads in science classes. And then I was just thinking about you taking science classes here, as you stay, which they're so intense for all students. It doesn't matter. Yeah. How smart you are. The science classes here are intense. So what was that like being a teacher?
It was one of those things where I heard my parents in the back of my hand said, "I told you so." Because originally I was supposed to go to school to be a teacher. I was thinking I was going to be a kindergarten teacher. And then right before I started applying to colleges, I was like, I really don't want to do that. I want to go for this vet med. Let's do it. But throughout my life, I've been teaching. I did it when I was still back in Raleigh, when I was an environmental educator, and I went to schools with the Raptors and whatnot. So when I became a teacher assistant in graduate school, it was just like, wow, it just reconfirmed that I love teaching. It was because I always had this policy at the beginning of the semester, first day, I was like, hey, how many of you like biology? Because I taught biology 1 and 2. 2 was way more interesting because it talked about the animals. And I'm like, how many of you guys don't like biology? How many of you guys don't like animals? And I'm like, all right, cool. By the end of this semester, I will have changed your mind and you would have liked this class. And I taught for 3 years. Every single one of those semesters, I was assessed. At the end, every last one of them told me they enjoyed biology too, and they had a great appreciation for animals. And that is my goal in life, is to, go through and be like, hey guys, look, I know you're freaked out about, say, possums, but let me talk to you for a little bit and see if I can change your mind. And that has been a lot of fun for me. Is like, I get to still teach and talk about animals, but not only that, I get people excited about animals, and that feels very rewarding for me.
Yeah. No, great. I don't think I ever told you I had a possum come into my house.
What was he doing in your house?
Well, I can't get into that, but it freaked me out. I didn't know they had teeth. Like, I had to lock up my dog because my dog was cornering it and she wouldn't let it go, Oh,
no.
But they had sharp teeth.
They do.
Yeah. But anyway, it ended up getting out. So, but I was going to have to call the animal control or whatever to have them come, because I'm like, there's no way I can, shoo it out with a broom. I wouldn't know if it would attack me.
Most times it usually will just go out because it's probably scared, because those guys have really sharp teeth, but it's just because of the kind of food they eat. Yeah. They don't hardly ever bite. More likely they're to play dead.
Right.
Anything.
Right. Yeah. This was not playing dead.
I shouldn't be here, but I'm going to protect myself.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So you did the turtle team, you did rescue team, then you did trio. And then the other big thing you did was study abroad.
Oh, yeah. That was fun. Nerve-wracking, but fun.
Yeah. No, because I remember of you going. I mean, it was stressful.
It was.
Just the money part.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So start to finish, what did you end up doing?
So, oh my gosh, the first time I wanted to go study abroad, I think it was 2015, I wanted to go to Belize, but I couldn't get a scholarship to go. And so I ended up going, which I'm grateful now because the next year I started saving up for a year to get those funding, started planning a new scholarship because I wanted to go to Costa Rica and I wanted to go for longer than the normal, like 1 week or 2 weeks. I actually went for 5. And what was different for me is I didn't want to do a traditional program. Most programs, you go through the school, you go take some classes, and you live in the city, but you're taking classes. I didn't want to take classes. I wanted to fully be immersed in the country. And so I found this program called International Student Volunteers. And basically the first 2 weeks you volunteered with a conservation program. So for mine was sea turtles and mangrove restoration. So we mangrove trees along the coast. And then we also caught and tagged sea turtles. And then the first week we were there, we stayed with the host parent and we learned Spanish. And then they sent us off to our sea turtles. And then the last 2 weeks, all we did was travel all over Costa Rica, exploring. And I basically went in a giant loop across the entire country and got to see volcanoes and waterfalls and just basically meet amazing people, eat amazing food. And live it up. And that's what I wanted. And during that time, part of my scholarship was I had to document my trip. So I wrote a blog, basically talking about how to do study abroad when you have low money or if you've never studied abroad before. Because for me, not only had I never been out of the country, but I had never been on a plane. And I ended up being on 3 different planes in one day on my first time. And it was nerve-wracking all the way up to the start of it because like you said, there was some money issues where the funding wasn't hitting my account when it was supposed to. And I actually didn't know I was going to go to Costa Rica until a few days before I was even supposed to get on the plane. And then even when I was there, it was a few days more before the money finally hit my account. So I actually went to another country without having full funding. So that was super nerve-wracking. I had to believe everything would work out. And it did. And I had a great time. And it was totally worth it.
Yeah. No, because I even remember just the required clothing, which makes sense. It's like, of course you need like a certain type of boot, and whatnot.
Yes. So, I had to buy some extra things for that trip. Yeah. Yeah.
So this was an example too of you not doing what's recommended, because I remember, this is the thing of like why I wanted to do, like, it was so important to have a podcast with you, is because I remember being one of the people that it was just like, no, it's a lot easier if you do a university sponsored study abroad, like even just with money, you know, like you didn't come out of it in crippling debt, did you?
I did not. No, I actually came back with money left over. I was able to buy more souvenirs than my friends that were there. And I came back with no debt whatsoever.
Yeah. So
because I got the Gilman scholarship. Yeah. During that trip.
Yeah. And so I think that's the thing is, one, obviously you saved up for it, knowing, being more prepared, getting the Gilman. And then the level, because how do you gauge the risk of something, or shouldn't let my emotions run? It's like, okay, I have to put some logic behind this.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where, I knew especially with you and everyone else giving me advice, I knew it was a risk to do it. But I also was like, okay, well, how do you deal with risk? Well, you prepare. So like, all right, this is not something where I can up and go to Costa Rica tomorrow. No, this meant I had to wait another year before I could study abroad. It meant I had to do a lot more research to make sure I covered myself and whatnot, to try to negate some of those risks. But at the end of the day, it was like pros and cons. Like, okay, if I'm going to go abroad and I'm going to do this experience and I'm going to spend all this money, then I better enjoy it and I better be like making a difference. And that's what I loved about it. It wasn't just me taking classes, but not only did I get to help with conservation, but I also got to like do the adventure side. And that's what I wanted. And I felt that was important. And it was enough for me to take on those risks and that challenge and wait that extra year.
Yeah. Yeah, because it's like you were taking a risk of with your graduate school research, where your faculty advisor says, oh, we'll do this project. It's fully funded. You'll graduate within 2 years, and you're like, nope, I'm going to risk it.
Yeah. And that one was rough because the pandemic set in. So right before I was supposed to start my project, the pandemic hit, and now no one was funding anything. We couldn't be at school, and I had a choice to make. I could decide to go back and do what my advisor said, or I could take that risk again and go for it anyway. Mm-hmm. And I went for it anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I mean, how much different is your life going to be? Literally. And I'm ignorant. So it seems like a critical time for octopuses, especially research.
Yeah, it is now. Yeah. We want more research. And if anything, doing my project, I'm supposed to be publishing it hopefully soon. But it points out how much we're lacking. Like we've just been doing the same species and the same basic research. We haven't expanded and we need to expand. So if anything, doing this project pointed that out. And I feel like that's very important for where we're at right now in octopus research.
Well, and then we'll go to the next thing is like starting the peer mentor program. How did that come to be?
I don't remember what year this was, but I remember I was sitting in your office and we were talking and you were saying, because I remember my first year, that first day, because I came in, I think a week before everyone else was supposed to come to school for that, early summer program and whatnot to meet people. Mm-hmm. And I remember being terrified to leave my room. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm on this giant campus. I can't believe I just came a week early. I don't know anyone. And I remember just freaking out. And then as soon as I left, I met my friends that I was friends with the entire time I was at school, and still somewhat friends with now. Mm-hmm. But I remember having that conversation with you and you were saying that our retention rate was awful lately and that, people were dropping out after their first semester, after a few days. And when I asked you why, you were saying it was because, like, similar to me, the campus was huge and, and it feels so intimidating. You don't know anyone. And then they just can't handle it. And so they leave. And I was like, well, surely there's something we can do about that. And like, for me, yes, I was able to finally pull myself from the room. But what if there's probably people out there where they can't leave their room. So you have to go and be the one to knock on the door for them. And so I was like, I remember talking to one of my classmates and I was like, what if we start this mentor program where we connect people with the people who have similar interests to them or in their same classes so that they at least know one person on campus. And once you know one person, then they can introduce you to other people. And then I just started running away with this idea. I wrote up this whole presentation. It was the first time I ever developed a program and had to actually defend it and present it. And I remember you and everyone in Trio sitting there, and I'm like, whew, okay, now I got to convince them. And it was nerve-wracking, but I also was like, we need this. I want there to be other people who are able to stay in campus. They don't leave just because it got scary. I want them to be able to find what I found, a reason to make it through and it'd be worth it for them. And luckily y'all agreed. And so the peer-to-peer mentor program started. And it was a success. Oh my gosh, it was amazing talking to different people you normally wouldn't see, and they would fill out this saying, "Hey, I like people who like this," or I want to join this peer mentor program simply to like help with career stuff or class stuff. And it was great because like, you know, you talk to people who took the class before you, and now you have that up, or now you have a reason to come out of your room because now you have someone to have lunch with you. And that was the whole idea. And I'm glad it worked well when I was there. Hopefully it's still working well now since I'm gone.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because at one point, now I can't remember, but we had gotten funding so the mentors were compensated for their time.
That's awesome. I think that happened a year after I left.
Yeah, so it was a big deal. And then you won honorable mention for the Chancellor's Creating Community Awards.
Yes.
And yeah, for that, I was just going to read of it. Yeah, so you served as the chair and co-founding president since its inception. So you started in 2015.
Ooh, wow, that's so long ago.
Yeah. So in the first 3 years, it says the program supported over 50 diverse first generation and financially under-resourced students. But no, when you look at students' responses, and when we did focus group research, the peer mentoring program was people's favorite program. And it was, when we asked like students graduating, their favorite experience was being a peer mentor in TRIO.
Aww.
So, I mean, again, then too, it's that you added value to people's experiences at NC State and at TRIO who you will never meet. I think it's like really important for you to know that. And actually, I'll forward you this article that was written about one of the students. And that's what she talks about, is like, that was the biggest thing for her, was being part of the peer mentor program.
I just wanted there to be better retention. I didn't want them to leave.
Whether the pandemic.
Ooh, that was rough.
What is
so the first part of it was great because I'm an introvert, and that meant I didn't have to deal with people. So I was like, woohoo, this is great. And then the parks closed, and then I couldn't get into nature. And I was like, whoa, okay, great.
Yeah.
So lucky for me, I mean, unfortunately, majority of my master's was spent online. So it kind of limited how many people I could meet, but the same people I taught with were also my classmates. So we got really close. We would still hang out at each other's houses and like do class over Zoom together. So luckily for me, I didn't have to do it completely alone, and I'm grateful for it. Mm-hmm. I think the pandemic actually helped with some of my classes. So it was rough, but I made it.
Now, how did you pick this university for graduate school?
I literally went down the East Coast and said marine biology schools. I was like, let's see which ones, click, click, click. And then it was, okay, which ones actually answered my request to work with a professor. And I couldn't get into the ones back home in North Carolina because they said either my GPA or my GRE scores were high enough. They was like, oh, you're not going to get in here. And in some of the other schools, some of the professors just didn't answer. So I was like, all right, cool. But Nova was like, you can get in even though that we don't, you don't have a professor yet. And it's okay. We don't care about the GRE stuff. And so, yeah, they're the ones who accepted me. So they're the ones where I went.
Do you think that was a good fit? Like, what would you changed about it? Like the whole grad school process? Is there something that kind of like then what you know now?
To be honest, I would have, one of the mistakes I made is going to graduate school was a last second decision. It was never on the plan for me to get a master's. I was supposed to go straight to veterinarian school. But I needed that little boost to my GPA. And so in that year break I took off from school, and that last bit, I was like, okay, I'll go get a master's. And I feel like it limited where I could have gone. To be honest, I'm not the hugest fan of the program that I was in. It felt very unorganized, and I know to some extent you're supposed to be independent, but it felt like no one would help you, basically. Like I did everything on my own. And it was funding for nothing. So I don't know. If I did it over again, I probably wouldn't go to Nova. I would have, if anything, wait another year to get into a different school or wait another semester, or tried for a different place. But for where I was, I made the best of it. So there is that.
Yeah. And then how are you going about your job search and vet school process now?
So I applied to vet school last cycle. I didn't get in. So I won't be going to NC State, unfortunately. Yeah. But now it meant, because even though I did really well in my master's, I struggled so hard in chemistry and physics in undergrad. My GPA is lower than it should be, and it kind of limits where I can go now. So I've been looking at schools who are more holistic, and they look at you as like a whole person and not just your GPA, or they don't average your grades as much, kind of thing. So I'm planning to about 8 schools this time around instead of 5 like I did last time. So chose a little bit more carefully this time. So I'll hopefully be submitting that in a couple months. And then job-wise...
hold on. Because also with vet school, it's harder to get into than medical school. Because
oh my gosh, yeah.
Vet school. I mean, it's really, really difficult.
It is. And there's only 33 schools in the country. Yeah. And then they get thousands of applications for only 72 spots, if that, or 100 spots. And I talked to some schools this time, basically asking them, hey, wanted to see what happened with my application last year. What do you suggest? And because it's so competitive, some of them are like, go to school for 2 more years, take some more science courses, or retake all your chemistry so we can see that you do well in chemistries. And it was like, you might be more competitive that way. Right now, that is not my plan because I already did an extra 3 years of school. So I don't know. I'm gonna see what happens, and so far, I mean, Dr. Lubart's been encouraging me because he said, it took him 3 times to get into school. So
and then he got his master's in marine science, right? Or marine
he's technically an aquatic veterinarian. Yeah. Yep. So he's been encouraging me. He's like, hey, it's all right. Just try again this cycle. I'm like, all right, cool. So,
because do they have specific degree programs for the behavioral stuff that you want to do?
Yeah. So there's not a lot of behavior. So out of 33 schools, maybe about 15-ish of them have really good exotic programs. Most of them focus on large animal and small animals. So already that limits the experiences, places I can go. And then of that, I don't think many of them even focus on behavior. It's one of those things where I have to get a residency or internship afterwards to become a certified.
Yeah. And then what jobs are you applying for?
So I'm doing a combination of things. Since I like teaching, I'm trying to combine that. So I've been applying for some museum scientist jobs, some environmental educator jobs. Actually applied for conservation scientist program in Ohio, and they just do research on conservation. I would love to do that for a little bit. And then I also applied for assistant director of educational programs, since I have such experience with education. I wouldn't mind helping develop some programs. So.
And are you applying for all over the country, or?
I'm really concentrated. One, I applied back in North Carolina. I've applied here in Florida, and then I've only applied one place in Ohio. But I'm trying to stay stationary at least until I hear back from veterinarian schools, because I'm going to have to move anyway. So I'm trying to save money.
Right. Yeah. So what's something that we haven't talked about that you think is important for TRIO students to know?
I think, I know you mentioned me being a writer as one of the things. It is one of the things people get on me about, because they're like, oh, you studied animal science? And then as soon as I tell them I also did creative writing, they're like, huh? How does that go together? And it does. Writing and science are more friends than you think they are. Unfortunately, a lot of scientists aren't very good writers because I don't think they realize how important writing is. And creative writing is definitely, they don't usually think, hey, how does that even fit? But being able to creatively tell people information is growing these days. They're trying to switch over to making science way more interesting. So my creative writing actually helps a lot with that. But I also love fantasy. So I've been working on this trilogy that I started in my creative writing class in undergrad. And I sent out the first book of it to publishers. So I'm waiting to hear back. I've already gotten one request, but I'm waiting to hear back for a better one. And then I'm finishing up the other 2 books. So that is one of my favorite things that I'm working on right now. Super excited.
How do you do all this? Like,
I mean, I already love reading. So, I can eat books, but I also have too much of an active imagination, as you know. So using it productively is what I am doing.
Yeah. So I'm like, you've got to take care of all those animals and you've got to do school. Then you always have 3 or 4 jobs.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. Well, right now, lucky for me, I've taken the last 2 months off. So my pets aren't that much. It's usually the dog that really takes the most time. Reptiles are super chill. Job wise, I've been taking a break-ish. And then I'm done with school. So I've had more time to do writing and reading, and it's been nice. During the school year, I hardly ever got any writing or reading done. And it would only be during breaks that I really would get really absorb books, really do some typing and whatnot. That's why it took me so long to finish the first book, because I was finishing school. But if anything I've learned between especially during that year off I took between undergrad and graduate, was the importance of living. I got burnt out in undergrad because I spent so much time trying to prepare myself for that career and taking all these classes and all these experiences, but I never took time to breathe and just relax and hang out with friends and whatnot. And I learned in that year that even if that means that you don't study those extra hour, just going to lunch with a friend or taking that time to read a book, it's better to balance your life. So that's what I took into graduate school. And I feel could my grades have been higher if I dedicated my soul to it? Totally. But I had learned what happened in undergrad when I gave up everything for courses. Yeah. And it's more important for me that I'm healthy all the way around, both mentally and physically. It gives me that time. If I want to write, I make sure I allot that time to write and read, as well as allot that time for studying. Yeah.
Yeah. Because and I think people probably can tell just by even the audio is that you're upbeat and happy and positive. And when they Google you, they're going to see photos and your social media accounts. And
that important. So you see the pictures, you're like, oh, she's smiling. She must be having a great day. And even now, I'm doing this podcast, even though I know in the back of my head, I'm like, whew, I'm waiting to hear back from jobs. Oh my gosh, I don't have a car right now. But it's kind of balancing it out. It's either I can sit around in a pit being sad on my couch, or I can go hang out with my friends and laugh and have a little bit of time. And sometimes, even though I'm not there a full 100%, just the fact I got off my couch, I went somewhere is enough, to help you keep moving forward. So I'm not always 100% happy, of course, in my photos, but being able to, those photos remind me, hey, I was having a rough day, but you feel like you have to do it on your own. And I'm one of those people that I try to do the best I can, but at the same time, there's times I know I'm okay, I need help. And being able to ask for help is just as important as being able to do it on your own too.
Yeah. Yeah. Especially if that's what you want to do is help people, and help animals, and it's so you're not going to be the one to ask for help, even though that what gives you the most energy, is to help. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yep. So you're car shopping now?
I am car shopping. I'm actually, after this, I'm going to go look at some cars.
Well, we're going to be wishing you luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah. But what's the last thing you want to say?
I feel like it's one of those things. One of my favorite models has always been, it's like dream big, but like once you've like solved that dream, get a new one, dream bigger. Because why not? Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, keep us posted on everything. And people can find you, Shaquilla Hamlett, by Googling on LinkedIn, Facebook, other places. So
yes, basically.
Yes. No, but thank you so much, Shaquilla. I know I harassed you about it, and it means a lot to me, so I appreciate it.
Well, you knew eventually I would say yes.
TRIO Student Support Services Program and Student Support Services STEM are federally funded college retention programs. Our program is focused on academic, personal, and career support for under-resourced undergraduate students. At TRIO SSS and SSS STEM, our mission is to provide equal access to quality education by facilitating retention and promotion. We are currently accepting new students into our program. Apply today or reach out to us to learn more about student support services at NC State.